Hi, and thanks for logging on to the Daily DVAR Halacha. And here's a brand new halacha for you, and it's for Thursday, 6th day of May, 24th day of Iyar. Today I'm going to give you some of the famous reasons why a lot of shuls will read the Megillah of Rus, the special story of Rus, on Shavuos. Okay, not everybody does this, but certainly in Ashkenazic shuls, it's just about all of them. And I think some Sephardi shuls don't do it, or they do it at different times. But anyway, this is the reason why it's quite prevalent for a lot of shuls to read Rus. Number one, the Ramah brings this reason, and it is because you see in the story of Rus, she becomes a convert and accepts Judaism upon herself, and it comes with a lot of difficulty. Rus is very, very poor at the beginning and has to go through some great hardships, and it teaches us the lesson that accepting the Torah, it's not meant to be a stroll in the park. It does come through hard work, difficulty, sweating and toiling, and that's your best way to accept the Torah. So that's one reason why we would read the story of Rus on Shavuos. Another reason is because, quite a simple, straightforward reason, right near the beginning of the story of Rus, it tells us that it was the time of the harvest when the whole story began to take place, and that that is the time of Shavuos, so it's fitting for that story to be read at the time of Shavuos. Another reason is because we all know very well, I hope you know, that Rus, when at the end of the story, it describes the lineage that comes from her, and she is a couple of generations before David. When she becomes converted into the Jewish people, she ends up having, eventually, several generations later, David HaMelech as a great-grandchild, and David HaMelech was born and died on the holiday of Shavuos, so therefore it would be most appropriate to read the story on the holiday of Shavuos. Also, a gematria reason, the numerical value of the word Rus is Resh is 400, Vav is 6, and, Resh is 200, Vav is 6, and Tuf is 400, adding up to 606. Okay, now you probably know that there's 613 commands, mitzvos in our Torah. So Rus was already a non-Jew before the story began. So she had 7 mitzvos, as all non-Jews have, and then added 606 mitzvos when she became a full-fledged Jew. So hence the gematria of Rus being 606 fits beautifully to the accepting of the Torah, which happens on Shavuos. Okay, another reason to read the story of Rus is because the story of Rus shows us the tremendous importance of not only studying the written Torah, but also studying the oral Torah, because she comes from the nation of Moab, and when you read the Torah just straight, it says don't marry into the nation of Moab, and only through the oral Torah do we know that that was referring to Moavi men not marrying into the Jewish people, but Moavi ladies are allowed to marry into the Jewish people. Now, you would never know that unless you had accepted the oral Torah along with the written Torah, and those two are combined as our acceptance on the holiday of Shavuos, and therefore we read the story of Rus on the holiday of Shavuos. One more interesting reason is because when the holidays are written in our Torah, right after the holiday of Shavuos is mentioned in the Torah, then the Torah also tells us, it was in just a few weeks ago in the Parsha, Uvekutzrechem es katsir artzachem, when you harvest, at the time of the harvest, and it's written right after Shavuos, don't forget to give your leket, the fallen stuff for the poor people, and the peah, and the corners for the poor people. Now that mitzvah is listed right after Shavuos. And that mitzvah played very prominently in the Rus story because she comes to the field as a poor person and is allowed to collect the leket as a poor person. So Shavuos being mentioned in the Torah right near the holiday, right near the law of leket and peah is very apropos because that exactly happens to Rus in the story of Rus. So, and it's mentioned right next to Shavuos, so Rus is read on Shavuos time. There are other reasons too, but I'm almost up to 5 minutes. So there's some very famous and prominent reasons for reading Rus on the holiday of Shavuos. Thanks for logging on. Log on again tomorrow for more. 5 minutes right now. Bye.